Good Thursday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Ryan Cavanaugh will join us. We'll preview some of the top matchups from high school football across the area. Tomorrow's games. Browns getting ready to head west to face the LA Chargers. 4 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. We'll hear from plenty of the Chargers. Also some Browns news as Myles Garrett and Malik Jackson back on the field practicing today. Not practicing for the Browns, though, both Chris Hubbard and Jedrick Wills, as well as J.C. Tretter. Clowney didn't practice. McKinley didn't practice. Newsome didn't practice. He's been ruled out already. Smith didn't practice. And the aforementioned Hubbard, Tretter, and Jedrick Wills not practicing. Also news today coming out that the left shoulder, Baker Mayfield, he actually has a torn labrum. Wearing a harness. One guy that knows exactly what Baker Mayfield is going through with that torn labrum, Odell Beckham Jr.
I don't really care to talk about injuries, but I've had this since college. It's the same thing. He's got, I guess y'all found out, I've been had it for 10 years now. So I just kind of, it is what it is. Like, I'm going to go out there and play football, do whatever I got to do.
So your shoulder pops in and out all the time since college days?
It's been happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a torn labrum
forever until you probably get it fixed.
But you never felt the need for.
I don't want to be on the surgery table anymore. So it just, you keep working it. You work the muscles around it. You do all of that, and then you just go out and play. You forget about it. By the time you get out there, forget about it.
I know you can throw a ball. I know you can throw a ball far. Could you see where that affects throws? Injury, if it's fresh.
I tell you, that shit hurts. So he's tough. It doesn't feel good. There's days where I woke up that first day after Monday, I couldn't necessarily lift an arm. You heard that little right there, but it is what it is. We're gonna go play football. He's tough. He's gonna go play.
Let's welcome in Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan, as well as the halftime and post-game shows on the Browns radio network. Dr. Odell telling you exactly what we have talked about. It can't feel good throwing a football with even your non-throwing shoulder injured.
I would think that is correct. I would also think it would hinder you, Dave.
Yeah.
If proper throwing techniques, you've heard it, talked about where the left shoulder gets involved because it's pulling through the right shoulder during the throw, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is, one shoulder's here and the other one's here. How could they not be connected, affected, have something to do with it? Of course it does. So it's no surprise to me that there's something a little bit more there. I mean, it was real clear because, as Baker said all along, he said, no, I'm okay. Well, that didn't sound very convincing. And then he said, I throw with my right. Well, okay. If he was okay, he would have said, there are no issues at all. My shoulder is fine or something like that. But he never quite said that. So it's no surprise to me that he's actually has some kind of an injury. Now, what is kind of a surprise, how did Ian Rappaport find out? And why did he find out now? I don't know the answer to either one of those.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's got guys. He's got sources. Let's leave it at that.
He has people.
People.
He has peeps.
His people told him. All right. So an interesting thing has come out is, the Browns teammates on both sides of the ball just respect Baker wanting to be under center and be the leader of the team. Here's what a couple of his teammates had to say today about it.
Toughness, I'm not gonna do my TO, it's my quarterback. But no, for real, like that's how I feel. Like, him sucking it up every day for us, as a quarterback, who can take a hit every play or, has to throw the ball in so much pain and everything like that. I'm over here complaining about a little nick and bruise over here, but, to see him out there every day, no complaints, nothing, just comes out and work every day. You have a quarterback like that, a leader like that, it definitely makes you want to play a little harder.
I think there's no doubt in any of the players' mind that he's one of the tougher guys out there. He's going to go and he's going to battle, and he's been hit and beat up before, and he just keeps coming back. You're going to have to do a lot more to get him out of games than, whatever's going on with him now. And he's just focused on trying to get better each week and trying to be the best quarterback for this team. And we're trying to rally around him and protect him and put him in the best possible positions.
And Jeff, it's been something that has been apparent with him. Players like playing with him, and they respond to him as a leader. That's part of being a quarterback.
I think it's a key part of being a quarterback, Dave. We've been talking about this on our show all week, and that's no surprise to anybody. Everybody has been. But if you look at what Baker did last game, as he said, he didn't play very well. If you look at his season stats, he has 2 touchdown passes in 4 games in a league where quarterbacks nowadays have to throw a lot of touchdown passes. If you're not throwing 25 plus, you're not doing much. If you're not throwing 30 plus, you're not considered really pretty good. And he's on track to throw 8.5 this year. Yet they're 3-1, and he's the quarterback of a team with a 3-game winning streak. So what are we really keeping track of here? Wins, but at some point you're going to need Baker or your quarterback, whoever that is, to go ahead and lead that drive, to get you down the field, to make that key pass, to make the play that wins a game for you. They haven't had to do that yet. And the Kansas City game, he threw the interception late, and who knows if they win that game if he doesn't. But I keep trying to balance those things in my head, Dave. And the bottom line is they're 3-1, and last year they were 11-5 and won a playoff game. So I have a hard time getting mad at Baker over his play or playing through an injury. If they're winning, they're winning, and he does a really nice job of leading that offense.
Yeah, without question. And Baker Mayfield took to Instagram because a lot of people have been talking, and here is the post, basically saying people forgot how I got here, and winning is the bottom line. He's also crediting the group, and it's more of what you expect. Hey, if this is a rallying point for him, if this is something that's going to motivate him, more power to him. Bottom line is he seems to always find a way when you count him out to get back up and get it done. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is the week when the Browns need Baker Mayfield to do something that he goes ahead and does it.
I wouldn't either. I find it interesting that in a week where Baker comes out and has he had a poor game. They won, but he had a poor game, and he said that he comes out on Instagram and puts out something like that, and then the next morning, Ian Rappaport gets an injury update that we haven't seen anywhere else. The timing seems a little weird. Certainly doesn't seem like stuff that would come from the Browns, and Baker's thing really didn't. And I don't know if it matters where it came from, but it does put Baker's situation in a different light. Just before we got going here, I was checking out a website, and on the front page, it just said, Baker Mayfield playing through serious injury. Well, that changes the thought of Baker Mayfield played a crummy game, doesn't it? And if anybody in Baker's camp did that, well, okay, fine. Bottom line is, and again, they're 3-1 and they've won 3 straight.
Yeah.
And he's been the quarterback on the field for all of that.
Yeah. And
so we'll see moving forward.
And again, as long as it's not going to do long-term damage, you leave him in there because this team rallies around him. That's the one thing. Pro Football Focus. So we've talked about them. Analytics guy, grade every play for every position. All right, they tweeted about the highest.
By the way, how many people must they have for that?
Oh, they have a lot. Chris Collinsworth started it. So, imagine the guy
he bought it from some guy in England or something like that.
Can you imagine the guy that's
overseas deal? He bought it.
Can you imagine?
Will Collinsworth.
You get to grade the left tackles this week. Anyway, highest pass.
Hey, Dave. Wyatt Teller's good. Who knew until Pro Football Focus told us?
Highest pass blocking grades. Joel Bitonio is up there, 85.5. You see Colton Miller first, and then Bitonio's tied with Charles Leno Jr. Here's the other thing about Joel Bitonio. Playing in his 100th game as a Cleveland Brown, Bitonio talked about that today.
It's a pretty cool honor. I mean, Dan Murphy was telling me all the guys that have got 100 career starts in Cleveland since 1999. There's only going to be 4 of us now. I mean, anytime you get to put on the helmet, it's an honor and it's a privilege to play this game, and to be here for the 100th time and hopefully a bunch more. It's pretty dang cool, man. And you think back to your first game and all the games in between, and there's a lot of memories in there, but it kind of goes quick, man. I wasn't, I heard about the 100th thing a couple games ago, and I was like, man, it feels like yesterday I was just getting back out here and getting things started.
And Jeff, Joel Bitonio is he's one of those guys you enjoy talking to, you enjoy hearing from. To play 100 games with the Browns teams that he has, he deserves a medal.
They should put statues of Joel and Joe Thomas out front of the stadium, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
And I think J.C. Treaders is on the way.
and he's been very good. I mean, he got lost. Yeah. How good he was got lost in some pretty bad football a few years ago.
Think about this, because I think Joel's really good too, Dave. He's a great spokesman for the team. That's the kind of guy you want. Joe Thomas has a Hall of Fame career, and I won't say it was wasted, because it wasn't. Joe played great, but we didn't take advantage of it as Cleveland Browns fans, that's for sure. But somehow, through this entire mess of stuff, this organization has had some pretty good offensive linemen, and since '99, and I think that's impressive. I'm not sure how, but they've had some pretty good offensive linemen. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, points to Joel Bitonio, 100 games with the Browns. All right, Jeff Phelps and I going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll flip sides of the ball. We'll start talking a little bit of defense. Anthony Walker back practicing. Could go on Sunday. That would be a big lift in the middle of the Browns defense. Defense that's been pretty good. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Sports for CLE continues. We continue talking Browns Chargers with Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan and the Browns Radio Network. So Anthony Walker back on the practice field. Talked a little bit about how he's progressing and coming along.
Yeah, taking it one day at a time. Definitely progressing. See how today go, but yeah, feel good for the most part.
What do you thought about this turnaround of the defense the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's been, not fun to watch, but fun to watch. The guys, just clicking on all cylinders right now. Being able to stop the run, and then, rushing cover has been great, getting off the field on third down. So definitely looking forward to keep trending in that right direction.
And Jeff Phelps, Anthony Walker, you tend to forget how good he is. They were missing him. He was leading tackler in the Chiefs game, and then he got hurt and hadn't been able to play since. But they've been missing a couple of pieces of that defense the last 2 weeks, and they've just hadn't missed a beat.
The Browns are fortunate, Dave. If there's one spot on the defense where I think, you've got that covered, it's middle linebacker with Walker and then Malcolm Smith, who has stepped in and played some. So that's okay. Before I get back into my point, every time I see Anthony Walker, I flash to Peter Griffin in Family Guy when he had the beard and the bird was living in his beard. Anthony's beard is incredibly impressive. I keep thinking that bird's going to come flying out of that thing. But good to have him back. And it's funny, Dave, because the first two games, there were so many questions about the defense and everybody talking about Joe Woods and how this thing wasn't working. We had John Clayton on our radio show today, and John, the former ESPN reporter, longtime NFL reporter, he's based out of Seattle now and writes for the Washington Post, among other things. And when he was talking about Baker and the Browns, and he said, and their elite defense. And he's not the first guy I've heard say that. And here it's taken only 2 games one against Chicago where we thought, is Chicago any good? Are they just that awful? And then one against a pretty good Minnesota offense. To have that entire thought process flipped around. So instead of being a big problem for the Browns, the defense now seems to be a real asset. I'm not convinced of that yet, but I like so much of the talent on that D, Dave. And I think Andrew Berry and his staff did a great job of stockpiling, especially DBs. I think they really beefed up the safety spot. They keep adding corners. They drafted Greg Newsome. They signed Troy Hill. I think that's terrific. The Maliks have done a real nice job. I thought all along, are you going to be better than Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi? That's the question, because they weren't bad last year. I think the Maliks are better than those two guys. At least I think they've shown it through 4 games. So getting Walker back in the middle of that, he's clearly, he's calling the signals. That helps. And that puts Malcolm Smith back into a depth role. I'm anxious to see what they do against a really good Chargers offense coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, and again, points to Andrew Berry, because it's one thing to put talent together. They seem to have done it where it fits. The guys they have brought in appear to fit to what they're asking them to do. All right, and because you like Pro Football Focus so much, we have another tweet for you.
I actually do.
I know.
I just think it's so fun.
Who
sits down and breaks all this stuff down? That's amazing.
Somebody who has a whole heck of a lot more time than we do, so we will rely on that. So this one is about Myles Garrett. 6 sacks first in the NFL, 25 pressures second. And that's after a first couple of games where people were saying he needs to be more dominant. He's been really dominant the last 2 games.
The best thing about it to me too, Dave, is in the past you used to hear, well, the Browns defense has Myles Garrett and that's about it. And the last couple of games now, he was AFC Defensive Player of the Week after the Chicago game. They had 9 sacks. He had 4.5 of them. We get it. But you're not hearing just Myles Garrett anymore. You're hearing about the Browns D as a unit. You're hearing about the DBs. You're hearing about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who looks really interesting and exciting. And you're hearing about the D tackles. You're hearing about Clowney. And that's a great thing, because then it's not just all focused on Myles. And I don't mean our attention. I'm sure that's, an offensive coordinator's thought process too. All right, we got to deal with Myles, and then we'll worry about everybody else. Well, you better worry about everybody else a little bit now, as opposed to just worrying about Myles. And that's how a unit makes a big step. When you can't focus on one guy, you have to deal with a whole bunch of guys. I think that's what we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the other thing I think that does is when you have that many weapons, it enables you to kind of game plan differently too. Is this the week where you're blitzing Delpit, or are you going to blitz Koramoah? You can game plan differently. It isn't like you're a one-trick pony. You can do a bunch of different things with this defense if you're Joe Woods.
And we've started to see some of that, don't you think?
Yeah,
a little bit, because I don't think last year was a good indication of what Joe Woods wanted to do. I don't think he had a whole lot of talent to work with on the D, mainly because so much of it became injured. Yeah. Then they added significantly to it in the offseason. So this is a different unit. It allows him to maybe play what he's actually trying to play. And I think we've seen him dialing up the pressure as we've gone on. Denzel coming in on a blitz, JOK certainly getting after the quarterback. So I think we're going to see more of that moving forward, and maybe a good time to do it against a guy like Justin Herbert. I think he's a really good quarterback, but maybe a little pressure is what it takes to slow him down a little bit. We'll find out.
Yeah, and the other thing is, so everybody's been talking about how good this defense is playing. Anthony Walker, who came over and is relied on as a leadership, has been on the sidelines kind of watching. He thinks they're just starting to get where they're going this year as a defensive unit.
No, we're a long way from where we want to be. Like I said, if we are where we want to be right now, then that's the problem. We got a long season ahead. Hopefully, playoffs and everything like that. We want to be clicking at the end of the season. The last game more so than we are right now. So still got a lot of work to do, but again, we're trending in the right direction.
And that's kind of a consistent message, is we're going to keep getting better and growing and developing. And I think that has to do with just different things. We'll find out what different guys can do in this system as the games go along.
I don't know what you think. I think defense needs to play as a unit even more than the offense. You know, I mean, they have to really have everything together and know what they're all doing. They've had 4 games together. So, you know, think about that and where this could go with a little more time, a little more experience together, Dave. I think it could be really good.
I would agree. What do you think of the Chargers? Is this going to be the toughest? It seems like every week we say this is the toughest test the Browns have faced. And I know Chiefs are a different level, but the Chargers offense is approaching that, I think, that Kansas City type offense.
The other thing, though, I think Kansas City is really good, and the Browns gave up a lot of points. I think Minnesota's offense is really pretty good, too. And the Browns gave up just 7 points. That opening drive looked like it was going to, you know, like this is going to be a terribly long day. And the Browns are going to have to score 34 to win. And then the Vikings didn't score the rest of the game. And they slowed them down real well. I think the Chargers run kind of a Saints-based offense. It's a similar type of thing. I think Herbert is the second best quarterback they have faced this year behind Mahomes. Eckler is maybe the second best running back they faced this year behind Dalvin Cook, and he was injured. So who knows about that? And Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are really good wide receivers. And so they're going to be ready to go. And so this is a great test, and it's a second straight great test for the Browns defense. If they can do anything that resembles what they did to Minnesota to the Chargers, then I think all that talk about where this defense has arrived, it's maybe even an elite defense or on its way to becoming one, Dave, then I'll buy it. But I'm really encouraged about the way they've played as a unit.
Yeah, and you know, it's a different challenge with Williams and Allen. Those are bigger targets, maybe not the explosive guy like Jefferson, but they present
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, they present problems because of their size. You know, they're bigger targets, so it's a different challenge. Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan and the Browns Radio Network and I are going to step aside, take another quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear Louis Riddick talking about Baker Mayfield and Odell. What's it going to take to get an explosive play between Baker and Odell? Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns as they get ready to face the Chargers out west, 4 o'clock Sunday kickoff. So Louis Riddick, former NFL front office executive on ESPN's Get Up, talked about Baker Mayfield and what he needs to see from Baker if the Browns are going to be successful this year.
You're not going to value him the same way you value a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Now, that being said, open receivers in drop-back situations, play action pass situations that are there for you to put the ball on them, you got to put the ball on them. Simple as that. So when those things are not happening, then, you know, rightfully so, he should be scrutinized and he should be criticized. And if he's having those kind of moments where locking in on Odell Beckham, not letting the offense work organically for him like it did last year when he wasn't there, then that's something that Kevin Stefanski, he and Odell need to work out. And they better get it worked out. Otherwise, the whole thing as far as whether or not you should sign to a long-term extension is going to get thrown totally sideways. But I don't think we should ever have this idea that he's a franchise quarterback on the level that some of these other guys are, because he's not.
So, Louis, I asked this question, right? We all know the lineup average is if you're above Kirk Cousins, you're above average. If you're below him, then you're below average. Kirk Cousins, would you take Kirk Cousins or would you take Baker Mayfield?
Look, honestly, I mean, Kirk Cousins is someone who I have never really trusted in the same way that I would want to work with Baker Mayfield. It's a tough decision. I would probably still go with Baker. I think he'll play better as the year goes on.
And Jeff Phelps, Bart Scott was critical of Baker Mayfield. Okay, Bart Scott can be Bart Scott. I mean, they're 3-1. They're 3-1. You know, okay. Well, he didn't play well. At the end of the year, what do you look at? You go down and you say, how many games did you win? How many games did you lose? If you're a winning quarterback, then you're a franchise quarterback.
And forgive me if I've said this with you before, Dave, and I'm tired of me saying it too, but to me, it's a perfect example. Troy Aikman is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And if you look up Troy Aikman's numbers, you would never think Pro Football Hall of Fame. But Troy was the quarterback of a team that won 3 Super Bowls. And he did a great job of leading that team. And when he had to make plays, he made plays. If you look up Dan Marino's stats, they're through the roof. They're unbelievable. Clearly a better quarterback than Troy Aikman. Or was he? He put up all the numbers. His team didn't win. Is that on Dan? He never won a Super Bowl. He's also in the Hall of Fame. So there are a couple of ways to get this done. You know, you can light it up individually, and maybe your team wins, maybe it doesn't. Or you can do what Troy Aikman did. All right, let's hand off. Here's Emmett. Take the ball. Go. All right, I'm going to throw it to the tight end. There's Michael Irvin. Done. And he led his team to wins. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just in this day and age, Dave, where and I'm not kidding about this, everybody's so into fantasy football that you're looking for numbers out of a quarterback. You don't look at wins. They don't count on your fantasy team. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody. But the bottom line is, are you leading a team to wins? That's, in essence, the quarterback's job. And though I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan, Baker's led this team to the most success that we've seen since when? Since Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach?
Yeah. You
know, 1 year maybe with Belichick. And I can't dismiss him for that. They were good last year. They were 11-5. They won a playoff game. Right. That's really good. And this year they're 3-1, and they're on their way. And he's the quarterback of this crew. And as you said earlier, guys like playing for him. You can hear it when they talk. You know, you heard it with Bitonio. You hear it with Odell. You know, they might not be connecting, but they're hanging out together. They're spending time together. There doesn't seem to be an issue there. It just needs to be maybe more game reps. I don't know. But so when you judge a quarterback, any quarterback, there is more to it than looking at yards and touchdown passes.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And your point about fantasy football, I agree. So many people play it, and we both play it. But here's the thing. We
love it.
They're not game planning.
I don't want Baker as my fantasy quarterback. I don't. Neither do you.
No.
However, he's quarterback of our football team, and that's working out okay.
They're not sitting in Berea trying to figure out how to throw for 350 yards. They're just not.
No.
That's not what Kevin Stefanski's trying to do. He's trying to figure out how to beat the Los Angeles Chargers. And that's the bottom line. If they do that, then everybody is doing their job. All right.
Yep. You're right.
So Baker and Odell weren't on the same page. When you say chemistry now, there's this, it's not chemistry. They have not been able to connect. Both Odell and Baker think it's only a matter of time before they start making those explosive plays. Here's Odell Beckham.
You can definitely see the leadership. He's making major strides always, and he strives to be great. So anytime you have somebody like that, like it's fun to work with.
Do you feel like once you connect on the deep ball, that you guys can kind of exhale and take off from there?
Yeah, I don't really know if I feel the pressure to like, oh yeah, we got to connect once, and then it's like the weight off our back. It's just like, for me, the type of person I am, once I connect, I'm like, yeah, bet, like I'm 20 more of them. You know what I mean? So it's gonna come, it's gonna happen. Just stay patient.
And that's something we said about the defense after 2 weeks. Give it a little time. be patient. Eventually, it will come. Last year doesn't really matter. They were still trying to figure out the offense under Kevin Stefanski. So, different year, different things are going on.
Well, we hope so, and I agree with you, Dave. I really think that's the case, and we'll see if that turns out to be true. I've always liked Odell, and we've not seen a ton of the old Odell here in Cleveland, whether that's because of injuries that happened here or injuries that happened in New York that have carried over, whatever it is, whether it's Baker, whether they're not on the same page, I don't know. All I do know is that he's still a really talented wide receiver, and he may never be what he was his first 3 years, but that doesn't mean he can't help you win. You know, he can help you win football games. Can he not? I would think he can. And, you know, I keep going back to, with the wide receiver, Odell's run so many routes in his whole life. He's not running wrong routes. I can't imagine. Maybe he is. I'd be stunned. He doesn't have the football. It has to be thrown to him. So I look more at the guy who's throwing the football and try and think, can you get the ball to this guy? And if you can't, that's on the quarterback to me. I don't know. Quarterbacks seem to thrive when they have big-time wide receivers. And okay, if somebody wants to argue that point, maybe Odell's not a big-time wide receiver anymore. Who on this team is better at wide receiver? I don't think there is one. So make it work with him somehow, even if he's not what he used to be. I think he's still the best guy we have.
And the flip side of it is there's little nuances to how routes are run, and those two have to figure it out. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not like you miraculously understand, well, he likes it here, this cut's going this way. They got to get on the same page. And again, that takes a little bit of time. All right, because you like Pro Football Focus. Another Pro Football Focus tweet. This one, rushing grades. So Joe Mixon, highest one at 85.6. Austin Eckler.
Kareem.
Austin Eckler, who the Browns are facing, 82.2, just ahead of Kareem Hunt, 82.1, and Ezekiel Elliott. So those are the highest rushing grades. Browns are going to run the football without question. Odell Beckham talked about blocking for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Here's Odell.
I think it's tough for a defensive coordinator or defenses in general to handle that from like a pride standpoint. Like a team's just running the ball just up and down the field as they please. And you got two top dogs back there. You can hand it off to either one of them at any point in the game, and they're gonna get yards. So, I love seeing it. I told Coach, like, I want to take on the challenge, and back when I was in college, like, be a better blocker, like spring some of those, like that's, me and my mom always talk about that, like springing that one block to where, you know what I mean, he gets free. So just something you got to work on, practice, and they're going to keep running the rock, so we just got to keep blocking.
And Jeff, it's good to hear your wide receiver more than willing to block.
He always has been, Dave. That's, and I know people have looked at the sidelines every once in a while, and Odell looks like he might not be incredibly pleased with everything. I've never heard anything other than that he's a good teammate. And in chatting with John Greco, who's part of the Browns radio network over, months and years, John played with him for a short period of time in New York, and he said he was an awesome teammate. He said Odell was just a terrific teammate, and whatever it took to win is what he was going to do. And I think that's all you can ask. And then hopefully the other stuff gets figured out. We've seen glimpses of it, that big play he had against the Jets on that little slant and took it right up the middle, the end around against the Cowboys. And we don't have a whole lot of other guys who can make plays like that. So I'm anxious to see it all work. But when you have the number one running game in the NFL and teams know it's coming and they still can't stop it, you don't just leave that on the shelf. You make sure you put that to use.
Yeah, without question. Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan and the Browns Radio Network and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Joel Bitonio talks about Joey Bosa. We will also hear from Anthony Walker about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns-Chargers with Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan and Browns Radio Network. So Joel Bitonio, Browns offensive lineman, talked about the challenge of going up against Joey Bosa of the Chargers, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, he's one of the best guys in the league, one of the best edges in the league. You know, with him, he's so crafty. Like, a lot of guys are explosive and athletic just like him, but his hand work and I feel like him and his brother were like raised to play defensive end, outside linebacker in the NFL. You know what I mean? And these guys are impressive specimens, man. But they play hard, they play the right way. And with him, he's so fundamentally sound and so good with his hands that you really have to be on top of your game.
Jeff Phelps, I love that. Raised to play edge rusher in the NFL.
Well, their dad played in the league, so Joel might be onto something there. They're both really good. And, you know, when Nick came out, everybody was saying, well, Nick's better than Joey. I'm not so sure about that. And I don't mean that as a knock on Nick. I just don't think Joey gets maybe the respect that he deserves when you talk about the Bosa defensive lineman. Joey's really good. And it cracks me up, Dave, how small the shoulder pads are that he wears. You know, I know the reasoning behind it so that he can, you know, quickly get past linemen and there's nothing to grab a hold of or hit or whatever. It's funny though to watch him out there. He looks like he has punter shoulder pads on. He's just really good. And when you have a guy like that, and we know we have Myles Garrett, when you have a guy like that and the offense is focusing on that guy, it does allow other guys to do things that maybe they wouldn't be able to do under normal circumstances.
Yeah, and they're going to have to account for Joey Bosa and figure out how they're going to keep him from wrecking the offensive game plan. We heard from Anthony Walker earlier. He talked to the media and was asked, what have you seen from Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah this year?
Same thing you guys are saying. He's awesome, man. He's flying around, definitely, you know, just growing every week. You know, fun to watch. He's definitely electrifying. You know, I think it was the play on 3rd and long last week where he makes the game for a 1 yard gain when he's 10 yards back. You know, that's just, you know, I mean, yeah, different element that you know, at the linebacker position that you need.
Is he a little bit ahead of where you even thought he would be at this point?
No, he's like I said, this rookie class, man, there are a lot of professionals, guys that come in that want to be good, want to be great. They put the time in, not just on the field, but off the field. And, you know, when you got guys that do that, you know, it makes it, you know, easier on them.
So, Jeff Phelps, I want to see more of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Yeah, if he doesn't ever leave the field, it's okay, because he's made some plays that I haven't seen a Browns linebacker make in a long time.
Yeah, I think that's true, Dave. And I must tell you, the new number system in the NFL, I have a hard time thinking of him as a linebacker because he's wearing number 28. It doesn't seem right to me. And he doesn't move like a linebacker. How's that? He seems to move to me like he's a safety. And then you put that number on him and it just kind of, I'm having trouble in my little mind trying to figure that all out. He makes plays, he's impactful. And I would think, remember, he's only played 4 NFL games. I would think that more opportunities, more snaps, a weight, and more of an opportunity to keep impressing people. I think he's looked really good so far. Really a great move for the Browns to go up and get him in the 2nd round when he was still there on the board.
Yeah, the thing that I've been really impressed with is I've seen him shed some blocks. That's one of the things you're always concerned about. If they get a bigger guy out there, is he going to be able to get off the block? I mean, there have been times where he hasn't, but more often than not, he has. And if he can do that, he's going to create a lot of problems.
He is, and he has speed. he has an aggressive mentality, which is really, that's critical. He's playing linebacker, he better. But this gives Joe Woods another guy that he can scheme with. Myles is going to bring pressure from one of the end spots or wherever they move him to on that D line. And then you have McKinley and Clowney. And then you're starting to see the pressure coming up the middle from Malik McDowell and Malik Jackson. So if you have the guys in the middle putting on pressure and the guys on the end, and then you got this guy back at linebacker who's floating around and ready to clean up whatever might be there, or take advantage of the linemen getting double teamed and everything else and have a clean shot into the backfield. And Joe Woods has a chance to really scheme up some pretty cool things.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting and fun to watch as the season goes on and they just keep adding more and more on to this. All right, before I let you go, some keys to the Browns-Chargers game. What do you think? How does it add up to a win? What do the Browns need to do to move to 4-1, do you think?
I think they're going to have to score more than 14 points. I don't think what happened against Minnesota happens again. I would assume the Chargers score somewhere, in the mid to upper 20s. So I think the Browns are going to have a pretty good offensive game. And that means Baker Mayfield's going to have to hit some throws. So if the defense doesn't get shredded, and I don't think it will, they'll do fine, I think, but it's a pretty good offense they're facing. I think more than anything, I think this is the game where we might need to see Baker Mayfield actually make some quarterback plays to win you a football game. And that's okay. He's your starting quarterback. That's what he's there for. And he has the weapons to do it with his tight ends and with Odell and even Donovan Peoples-Jones and Hollywood Higgins, maybe even Schwartz. So we'll see. But I think the offense is going to have to play well, particularly Baker, because they're going to run the ball well.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and people probably get sick of hearing me say this, they got to win. They have to win or push the turnover battle. You can't lose the turnover battle in a game where you're expecting a close game.
Agreed. Yep.
Jeff Phelps from 92.3 The Fan, as well as the Browns Radio Network. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
You got it, buddy. Thanks for having me.
All right. As always, appreciate it, Jeff Phelps. Make sure you listen to him, 92.3 The Fan, as well as halftime and postgame on the Browns Radio Network. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will hear from some of the Chargers talking Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns-Chargers, 4 o'clock kickoff Sunday on the West Coast. So Brandon Staley, first-year head coach for the Chargers, is a native of Perry, Ohio, former defensive coordinator, just 5 years ago, defensive coordinator for John Carroll. He talked about the challenge of facing Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt this week for the Chargers.
Well, what they all have in common is they're elite runners. And Kareem Hunt, he's actually from where I'm from, in Northeast Ohio. So I've known a lot about him since high school. I know his high school coach really well, Matt Duffy. And, so I've known about Kareem for a long time, played at Toledo. And, he certainly is an outstanding runner. Outstanding runner, can catch the ball too. And then Nick Chubb is just, he's such a powerful runner. And he's got speed too. As much as he's a power runner, this guy can really run too. And so it's a really, really good tandem. Right now, it's as good a tandem as anybody in the NFL. And I think that, we played Pollard and Zeke. We played Gibson, McKissick. Last week, Jacobs, Kenyon Drake and Peyton Barber. And what it tells you is that the NFL is loaded with good players. And these two guys are as good as it gets on contact. That's what the data will tell you. Yards after contact is a real strength of this team, especially in the fourth quarter. And a lot of that has to do with how good their runners are, and a lot of it has to do with how good their O-line and tight ends are. And their fullback, Andy Janovich, I was with him in Denver, and he's an outstanding player. So there's a lot of good run game design with that group, with Bill Callahan and Kevin Stefanski, and they're a tough cover for sure.
And that is Brandon Staley talking about the Browns offense that he will have to face. So Linval Joseph, one of the defensive players for the Chargers, pointed specifically to what the guys up front on offense are doing for the Browns.
I mean, they have a good offensive line. They are a good group, and they don't really make that many mistakes. So, like I said, the goal is minimize mistakes, get turnovers, and score when we get the ball.
One of the tougher offensive lines you'll face this year?
We'll see. When I play against them, we'll talk about it. And just to be honest with you, I mean, every week a team could look like one thing on tape and then play against us and play totally different. So I really can't say what they're going to do, but for what I've been seeing, they're rolling, and this is a great test for us.
Well, again, Brandon Staley, head coach of the Chargers, talked about the guy under center behind that offensive line, Baker Mayfield, and what he's seen from Mayfield this year.
I'm a huge fan of Baker Mayfield's game, and I think that since he's become the quarterback of that team, their win-loss record speaks for itself. The fact that they went on the road, won a playoff game last year, and since he's become the starting quarterback there, things have changed, and that's what he did at Oklahoma. And I think he's an elite competitor. I think this guy can really create. He's an outstanding thrower of the football. This guy can really drive the ball, and he's not a tall guy, but he feels bigger than that. I think he's a little bit like Russell that way, where they're not tall guys, but they feel bigger. He can really drive the football. He can really make plays outside the rhythm and timing of the play. But then, he can really play within the offense too. I mean, he can play from the pocket. He's really good on the keeper play-pass game. And, I just think that this guy is an outstanding player, and he's a real engine for that team.
All right, so we've heard Brandon Staley talk about the offense. Now Staley flips sides of the ball, talks about what the Chargers see from that Browns defensive front that's been really good so far, especially the last two games.
They're one of the elite fronts in the league. They've certainly proved it so far through the first 4 games and the last 2 weeks in particular. And, you're talking about 2 former, number 1 draft picks up front. And then I think what they also did, they added Tack McKinley too, who's a former first-round draft pick. And Tack's first year was kind of my first year in the NFL, so I did a lot of work on him. And I think they've done a really nice job adding pieces to that front. Malik McDowell is a former high draft pick that's playing at a high level. Malik Jackson, that group of guys, and I think they've done a really good job of adding pieces to that team. I think Andrew Berry's doing an outstanding job there with Kevin, and I think that that's certainly the strength of their football team. And Myles is as good as it gets, on the edge in the NFL.
Again, Brandon Staley, head coach of the 3-1 San Diego Chargers. I did it there. Los Angeles Chargers, getting ready to face the Browns, 3-1 out in Los Angeles. 4 o'clock kickoff. Staley, first-year head coach, 3-1 start. Certainly in the running, starting to get some notice as a potential Coach of the Year candidate. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we will bring in Ryan Cavanaugh. We'll switch our focus, start previewing some of the high school football games that will be going on tomorrow throughout Northeast Ohio. We'll also have our Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Shining Star for the week. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Time to turn our attention to some high school football across Northeast Ohio. Week 8 of high school football underway. Friday night, some big games. Let's welcome in Ryan Cavanaugh, high school football analyst from Spectrum News 1, my partner on the broadcasts for Spectrum News 1. All right, Ryan, you and I are at a pretty good one tomorrow night. Aurora unbeaten, 7-0. 6-1 Barberton. What are you expecting from this one?
Fireworks. Man, am I looking forward to this football game, Dave. We start with Barberton. They've won 5 in a row, only losing to Stowe. They recently, 2 weeks ago, beat Highland. They come in, they've got John Jackson, commit to Kent, who's a defensive lineman, and they're really overachieving in a certain sense. They have a lot of new faces and starters, and this is a football team that week after week, Coach Anthony Gatto has seen improvement, and he continues and expects more of that. In fact, he said that game against Stowe, he kind of wishes it was in week 7 or 8 because some of those guys that were brand new, it's tough to play against a Division I team like Stowe that early. But Aurora, it's a little bit different. This is a team that I expected to be undefeated at this point. And frankly, they haven't been tested. And that includes a win over Cleveland Heights last week where they put it on them. Coach Bob Mahalik thinks he's got an outstanding offensive line. He's got great team speed, and he's got a veteran quarterback in Alex Moore. And the record and the results thus far say that Coach Bob Mahalik's right about how good this team is. Most of their starters, Dave, they don't even play in the second half. It's been somewhat of a lopsided season, and Coach Mahalik wants his team to be pushed. I think he's going to get that this week against Barberton.
Yeah, it always seems like Aurora and Barberton is a good game. Whenever they meet, both teams like to be physical, and they kind of get after each other. It's developed into a kind of a nice rivalry. Aurora has scored over 60 twice, which, again, it's impressive. All right, Hudson and North Royalton. This one's going to be an interesting one, I think.
I do too, Dave. And you and I had a chance to see North Royalton a couple weeks ago against Stowe. Personally, I think that's a game North Royalton should have won. They lost by 3 to Stowe. Again, no shame in that. Their only other loss was to Highland. They lost to them by 3. And North Royalton's a team that, as Coach Chuley said, he wants to see them put it together for 4 quarters, and he doesn't really know how good they can be because they haven't been able to do that. And that was the case against Stowe. They almost took a break, and they made some lapses during the game, and they allowed Stowe back into the game. They're playing a Hudson team that is facing their own bit of adversity, losing last week 28-29 to Nordonia. That can take a lot out of a team, but Coach Jeff Goff's going to find out how his team responds. A couple things we know about Hudson. Aiden Lau is a monster, and nobody's been able to stop him, not even Nordonia. He's going to get his. And in 5 of the 7 games this year, Nordonia scored 40 or more points. They're facing a very good defense. The Abu Hamde brothers from North Royalton, Dante Chuley, the coach's son, playing nose tackle. So I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Not only how does Hudson respond after their first loss, but how does the North Royalton defense play against maybe the best offense they've seen thus far this year?
All right, and the third game we're going to preview, Willoughby South and Kenston South, another team that we saw that was pretty good. You know, they're not big, but man, do they have a lot of guys that are fast and talented.
Yeah, they do. The only problem for South is they're losing these guys. So, Tyrone Singleton, their running back, and, Coach Duffy playing it close to the vest, he may not even know if any of these guys are going to play. But Singleton's been out for a few weeks. Ira Sampson has been out for a few weeks. Their quarterback, Colin Quinlan, was out last week. So Gabe Hanslick stepped in. And one of the more difficult names to pronounce, but a fun player to watch in Northeast Ohio, Andrew Osagi-Arisa. We watched them play, Dave, against Twinsburg, and he was like the third running back in after Singleton and Sampson. And both of us said there is about 90% of the schools in the state that would have this young man starting at tailback for them. So although they got those guys out, Osagi-Arisa is ready to go. And Kenston, Dave, in their own right, tight end Ryan Miller going to Indiana. He's been out for the year. Their excellent quarterback, Nicky Giorgio, he's out. He's not going to play this week. In fact, they started a freshman last week, Dylan Krupp. So Jeff Grubich and Kenston, the 6-1, their only blemish was Deschardin. Again, that's a powerhouse program. But two teams that look like me after running a 5K, they're kind of limping to the finish line, although that's just due to injuries, not due to total exhaustion like mine would be credited to.
Ryan Cavanaugh, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insights. Again, we'll be at Aurora and Barberton tomorrow. Can't wait. Look forward to that one. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, partner.
All right, Ryan Cavanaugh, make sure you listen to us. We will have the Aurora and Barberton game tomorrow on Spectrum News 1. All right, before we go, each week, the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students all over the state of Ohio. Today, we head to Brecksville High School, where we meet Anna Mahendele. Now, Anna is one of the top cross-country runners for the Bees, also top 10 academically in the classroom, and Brecksville is an outstanding academic high school as well. So Anna getting it done on the cross-country field as well as in the classroom. Anna Mahendele, this week's Shining Star.
That's the idea, yes. Even splits. Even splits, 90 seconds rest. Remember, you're getting 90 seconds rest. You get no rest on Saturday. Okay? Questions?
My coach tells us that running's 90% mental and 10% physical.
81, 82, 83, 84. Runners, set, go.
Cross country and running in general is all about numbers. Numbers that challenge you to be your best. Splits, personal best, race tags, it all comes down to numbers when running competitively.
When I'm running a race, I like to count in my head. I count my steps just on the right foot to make sure. That's kind of how I pace myself.
As a runner, Anna is motivated to catch people in front of her in the pack, and it shows her competitive spirit.
When I see someone in front of me, I'm always staring at their number. My goal is to catch them. I usually look for signs, like a lot of times if someone is in front of you and they're turning over their shoulder, they see you as a threat and they're looking back to see how much room they have. If I see someone doing that, it kind of encourages me because I just believe that I can get them. I think that I started liking to run because my parents got me a Fitbit and I ran CYO cross country, and in those days my coach would just tell us to go out and run for like 40 minutes or something like that. It wasn't a set mileage. So I realized that I could get more steps if I ran faster in the 40 minutes, and then I realized that I could run fast. So
Cancer awareness is a cause that Anna feels strongly about. As a 7th grader, she and a friend went door to door selling cookies to raise money.
I love finding ways to be involved and also like include my passion. So at the middle school, I was introduced to a campaign called Kick It for Cancer.
Freshman year in high school, she had a bigger and better idea.
3 years ago, I started a race in my development, and it's a 5K, and I just really enjoy it because it's running and also Kick It. That was a lot more successful. We did it for 2 years, and then we had to take a break because of COVID, but it'll resume. And so far, I've raised over $3,000.
Academically, Anna Mahendele is among the top 10 in her class at Brecksville, and she has big plans for her future.
I always have had the idea of being a doctor in my head. I just thought it was so cool when I went to the doctor and they're able to help you with something. And in school, I've always been a more sciencey, mathy kind of girl. And I just think that bio is so fascinating, how we have all these cells and stuff inside of us and we're able to function. I'm able to run. We can grow our muscles. There's strategies for growing muscles. And I think it'd be so cool to help athletes. From my personal experience, I've gone to doctors whenever I had knee pain or something, and they're able to tell you specific stretches or name all these muscles. And usually for me, my hamstrings are too tight. That's what causes all my problems. But I think it would be really cool to help people, especially athletes.
If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to OhioLottery.com. Find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. Great work, Anna Mahendele. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Doug Lesmerises, columnist for The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Joe Reedy will give us some Chargers perspective. Joe works for the Associated Press out in Los Angeles. That is tomorrow at 4. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow on Sports for CLE.